All right, let's talk about the solution to yesterday's problem here. Four parts, four multi-parts, all figuring around this polygon here, with the first question being kind of like a geometry review in terms of area of the polygon. And I'll get into that in my next slide here. So let me go to the next slide. Now, when I look at this next slide here, and I look at our shape, our polygon ABCD, I see a trapezoid. But I'll be honest with you, I cannot remember the formula for the area of a trapezoid off the top of my head. And so when I see one, if I can solve it by breaking it into a rectangle and a triangle, then that's what I do. Well, I see my rectangle there. 3 times 6, 18 square units. So that's my rectangle, which is right off of here. And so we see that right here, we were doing a little division here, and we put a little mark right here. Well, it's 6 units here. So going up. And so if it's 6 units out of a total of 10, then this is 4 right here. And so we see that, right? And so you can break it down. And so our triangle, 3 times 4 is 12. Remember, area of triangle, half of that, and so is 6. And so 18 plus 6, 24 square units. So bear that in mind as we go to the next slide. Let me just erase this, and before we go to the next slide. And boom, all erased. And here we go. You don't need to break it in. Precious is powerful. Precious can solve for it. Precious just go to the internet. Precious have trapezoid. Plug in dimensions, get answer. The precious. Get out of the room, dang God, for crying out loud, get out of here. Get Precious. Use Precious. I'm going to go to the next slide, get rid of him. All right. Okay, answer 2. Sorry for his appearance on that last slide there. And hopefully he doesn't look too much like me, which I was kind of getting nervous about when I looked at that photo of Gollum, because he does look a little bit like me, just a little bit less hair. So getting on the answer 2 here, we need to figure out what the length of DC is if we have a scale of half. Well, guess what? Well, half of 6 is 3, half of 10 is 5, so 5 units. 5 units. Now let's go to 3 here. I mean, our answer to 3. So we go to 3. And if we see here, for 3, we're saying, hey, what's the area if we apply that same scale of half? Well, technically, if we were to just go and do our whole area, and even if we had to use the precious with new dimensions, we could still solve it out the old way. Cut everything in half. 1.5 times 3 is 4.5. 1.5 times 2 cut in half is 1.5. And so we'd figure out that this would be 6 square units. Or if we think about what was in the notes from yesterday, that we said that when we cut something in half, the area became 1/4 of it. Because remember, we're talking a couple of extra dimensions here. And of course, 1/4 of 24 would have been 6 square units as well. So 2 different ways we could have done that one. All right, let's go to the last one here. And for the last one here, we said, hey, if we quadruple the area and create this polygon, TUVW, right? And again, this is not to scale here, because this is not 20 units right here. I just couldn't fit it all on one slide here. But I did the dimensions, 6 to 12, 3 to 6, 10 to 20. In 2 different ways I could look at it. Now, technically, if I know already that quadrupling here, with a scale factor 2, then the area gets quadrupled. And so with that in mind, and I'm going to have to stop right here, and I'll come back to answer 4 in a second video here.